We'll move now to 9.7, which is the Gambling Venue Policy Review Decision on page 364. And Mark and Brendan and Debbie, welcome. So I'll pass over to you. Obviously we've heard the submissions and we've read through the submissions.
Yeah, so I guess fairly brief really. Obviously the purpose of this report is to make a decision on that gambling policy, to adopt it or not, following your consideration of written and oral submissions. So the policy that did go out essentially was the same as the existing policy with a few minor administrative changes. So I guess that's sort of the guts of it, but do you want to say anything, Brendan?
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon, Council. Just briefly, to add to what Mark has said, just to provide a little bit of context. So the Gambling Act requires Council to have a gambling venue policy. The previous Council approved that the policy would go out for consultation with, as Mark said, materially the same, but with a few amendments to bring it up to date with legislative requirements. There were 15 written submissions. Of those, looking at the wrong part here, sorry. 6 of the 15 supported the policy and 7 submitters did not. And of those 9 not supporting the policy, 7 stated that they felt that it was too permissive and 2 felt that the policy was too restrictive. 3 of those 15 spoke today at the hearing. There are a number of themes that came out of both the written and oral submissions. Happy to go through those in detail if desired, but otherwise happy to take those as read. Similarly, Debbie's provided officer comments against those themes, and if I may speak on her behalf, I'm sure that she's happy to drill into those as required. Otherwise, happy to take that report as read.
Yeah, Councillor Pye.
Could you just explain to me how the relocation policy that we've got in our proposal differs to what one of the submitters was suggesting? Because they were suggesting we don't have one and I thought we did, but I think I may be confused.
I think it was misunderstood. We actually do have a relocation policy, and it does cover most of the items that he's requested. So I was a bit confused by his submission.
Thank you. So that's one, and look, the only other 2 major things that I thought were brought up is obviously, do we require a sinking lid? At the moment, the policy doesn't state that. And the other thing that was raised was 7 to 9 machines, and is there any appetite for that? So happy for that to be part of the discussion. Is there anyone that would like to discuss, comments?
I just have a question on that. I agree, I think the policy is great, but I do want to understand that variance between the 7 machines and the 9, and are we opposed of that? I mean, in this it says that we're not going to do it, but one of the submitters talked about the benefits across, instead of having 3 with 7, we'd have 2, that those economics of scale. So to me it seems like a no-brainer, but it's not in here. So I'm really keen to understand from you guys, you work and you develop this policy, why you haven't sort of gone down that track. And that was one of the big sort of conversations we had in those submitters today.
I'm just trying to yeah, sure. We relied heavily on a social impact assessment, and we followed that in terms of because it's not something that we deal with all the time. Like we'd have 1 application or 2 applications in 3 years or something like that. And the actual enforcement side of it and what actually happens on the ground is actually done by DIA, not us. So we only do the what in terms of our policy in terms of the location. So it does make sense what what he has said, because access, the number of venues seem to impact the gambling harm, from what I understand, what he was saying. So therefore, it makes sense if you've got more machines, you'll have less, you could potentially have less venues. Yeah.
Because one of our large trusts here in South Canterbury, Trust Aotearoa, you know, they in their submission they talked that for us to reconsider that. So yeah, that's why I thought it was interesting that they're one of our, well, they are our local, you know, providers in that space and grant and donors, not donors, grants makers. So yeah, we haven't really picked that up either in their submission. They weren't here today to obviously talk to it, but that was one of the key areas in their submission, was to reconsider that particular wording.
Thanks, Councillor Scott. Councillor Jackson, was it? No? Yep, Councillor Jackson and then Councillor Burt.
Yeah, mine's a bit more simplified than that, but the Gaming Act permits 9 machine limit, but we're only going with 7. So there's no research that shows that going from 7 to 9 actually increases gambling problems. Not any research that I could find that was valid. So they're saying it's not the number of machines, it's the number of venues. So why are we at 7 when the Gaming Act permits 9?
That's historical. I don't know the answer to that. Mark, you might know.
Well, I mean, ultimately, I guess when the policy was originally developed, we brought it back to you to have a look at. At that point, you decided you're comfortable with it for consultation, so we didn't change anything with the policy. Essentially, it's status quo.
I can add to that perhaps, just in terms of some of those policy levers that can be pulled to impact problem gambling rates, or, for example, increased community grant funding or the like. The submissions all presented, or a lot of the submissions that went into detail presented different evidence and a different range of studies. And my assessment in reading that is probably number one, because of, as Debbie said, the relatively low number of applications over any period of time, or the length of time that it takes for something to come into effect. For example, PGF Group today submitted about a sinking lid, which works over a many year period, if not decades. Frankly, it's quite hard to discern the impact that one particular policy lever may have on the overall outcome. I think that's probably also reflected by, as one of the submitters mentioned, just the nature of a gambling addiction and the other factors that are involved in that outside of gambling. So in that sense, as I understand it, 7 was deemed to be a prudent balance. And whilst I wasn't at council at the time, I believe 3 years ago, am I right in understanding that it was increased or rolled over?
It was rolled over 3 years ago.
Rolled
so
over,
it was
okay.
historical before
Yeah,
that.
okay. Okay. And I also note, if you look in the social impact assessment, there are a number of Class 4 gambling venues in the district that have more than 9 machines, and that's just simply historical because they had that number of machines prior to the Gambling Act coming into effect in 2003. So I suppose in that sense the short answer is deemed to be about balance, and that the social impact assessment didn't indicate that it was something that was worth looking at.
Thank you, and that's a key point. It's only when there's change, and there's not a lot of change in the space, that machines are actually reduced in a region anyway, isn't it? Councillor Burt, did you have a...
No, it's just in the recesses of my mind. I don't think last time we or any time that I can remember back, that the policy has come up, as it does rotate through, that we had consultation, but there was some discussion, and we socialised it among ourselves in terms of our local knowledge and what have you, and I think we landed, the 7 has always been there. It didn't change, and so we went with it. It wasn't a bone of contention. And unlike this, where we've taken quite a bit of information on board and actually can construct a better knowledge around what that means with a 9 and does it have any impact. And so I think that's a very valid point. I think that for us, we're constructing this around the fact of our local knowledge. We're a big enough community to know and understand that environment and where the machines are and who's dealing with them. We know that a lot have got existing use rights that are more than that. So I think this is a very good landing point for us, knowing our community, and I think that perhaps we should consider the increase to 9 as part of this.
Cool, thank you. So, any other discussion on the item? So, would someone like to move, and happy for it to be, whether it's status quo and or additional to thoughts? Anyone comfortable to move?
Sorry, are we suggesting we go back to 9?
No, I'm just asking for someone to move either way. Yeah, just to put a motion either 9 and or the status quo as it presents, and I assume that's the only amendment that someone would want to make. Councillor Pye was, oh no, so is that for Councillor Pudding? Sorry, Councillor Shannon.
Yeah, from what we've heard and what we've read, there's things are actually working fine. The policy is good. I am a little bit concerned about the optics of going up to 9. Just a little bit concerned. If everything is working, and we all seem pretty comfortable with the policy as it's recommended, I don't see the need to increase it.
Oh, that's fine. Would you like to move that?
Yeah. So I move the policy as presented, keeping it at 7.
Thank you, Councillor Shannon. Councillor Burt. Second as is. Okay, further discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Thanks, team. But don't go too far. Oh, sorry, you're against. Oh, I apologise. Yeah.
Yes, I'm against that.
Yeah, that's fine. Would you like that recorded?
Thanks. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. That's fine. Thank you. So moving now to 9.8. And welcome back, Azura. And Mark. And in your plan.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the purpose of this report is to present the 3-month report to the end of September. Obviously, this includes those 3 components: the sort of performance, our performance against performance measures, the financial position, and the delivery of the capital program. So from a performance measure point of view, obviously it's early days, but things are tracking pretty well. There's a number of measures that we don't currently measure at this point for the reasons outlined, but 70% are achieved or nearly achieved to date. And obviously the report sort of details the reasons why some of those aren't currently meeting their targets. I'll pass on to Azura to comment on the financial side.
Thank you, Mark. So from the financial perspective, as discussed at the previous commercial and strategy meeting, obviously we went through a couple of detail level, but it's all tracking well and within the required strategy and debt requirements and so forth. However, I just want to flag, as obviously at the moment we are doing a forecasting process, and this will feed into the annual plan, and that is due for the next committee update. Will be the first quarter forecast being presented, followed by the annual plan. So those will be reset and presented to you. And in terms of the capital expenditure, I guess we are a little bit behind, and that will be taken care of as part of the forecasting process. And that's just 3 mil, but mainly due to rephrasing. And happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions on the performance report? Where is that? Sorry,
Sorry,
Councillor
me.
Scott.
Sorry, just a really simple question, and it's probably one more for you, Mark. On page 369, it talks about the earthquake strengthening project for Egantai Art Gallery, and it just says there the design stage of the earthquake strengthening project has been completed, and council is now tendering for a contractor to undertake physical works. I thought we didn't get anyone. Did I misunderstand that, or is this a different wee stage, and I'm just 6 weeks in?
I'm not sure I can answer that. It might have been, yeah. Yeah,
No,
I mean,
yeah.
this may have been written before that decision was made, which is why it's out of date, possibly on.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
possibly prior to that, because it would have released, yes.
but you're correct.
Sorry, Nicole. Come up. Sorry. No, that's all right. No, sorry, Nicole, if just so people can hear you, that's all. No.
Yes, confirming on behalf of the team that they did go out for tender for the work on the gallery house, and because it's quite specialist, they didn't get any tenders, so they are reviewing that at this time and may need to take a different approach, but that information will come back, so confirming that.
That's all good. Any further questions in regard to the report? Been normally lots of questions. We must be getting tired. It's been a long day. Councillor.
Maybe-
Sorry,
I was
Councillor.
just going to say, I felt like we've had our opportunity to ask the questions on this report in the commercial and strategy meeting previously. I just feel like
You would.
we're sitting here with no questions, but they've already been answered. Well, my
Yeah,
questions
no,
that
that's
I've had
fine.
previously been answered.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. Is that it? You're going to go?
Can you just explain that corporate support, the favourable 1 million with the swaps? Is that on a quantity of money that we've got hedged, and that's what you were referring to before?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. In terms of the swaps, we do revalue them every month, and so depending on the point in time that we calculate it, obviously with interest rates, that differs each quarter.
What quantity of swaps have you got?
71 mil.
71 million.
Correct, yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Look, based on the discussion, I think we're comfortable here. I'm happy to move recommendation 1. Thank you, Councillor Parker. That was a second. No further discussion. Oh, sorry, Councillor Piddington, yes.
Sorry. Thank you. You've been here longer than me. Just one question on capital delivery. We've only spent 9.6 million, yet the budget is 84 million. So that's quite a low percentage of money spent. Are we ramping it up, or are we not going to deliver? It's just that that's quite a small number versus the target.
Thanks, Mr. Dixon. I think everyone's heard Councillor Booth's concerns.
I can confirm that we are definitely ramping it up. This is the first 3 months, which is effectively the winter period, so not a lot of construction actually goes on during that period. And if you look at last year as a comparison, I think we're roughly at the same point in the process, and we still delivered, the 75 million.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Piddington. So any further? Mover in a second. Otherwise, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. We get that right. Don't want to make assumptions. Thank you. Move now to 9.9, review of local government. Welcome back, Mark.
I never left. So really, I guess the purpose of this report is to just give you a heads up around the Future for Local Government report that's currently up for consultation, and just it provides a bit of a summary of the report and an overview of some of the key findings and recommendations that the panel has currently come up with. Obviously, it's a fairly important report, I think, and sort of part of the trifecta of local government reform that's been worked through at the moment. For those of you who are around, it was 30 years since the last big amalgamation, and yesterday I was told that it was the 30th anniversary of when the first text was sent. So obviously there's a lot of change that's happened in the last 30 years, and this report really is around thinking about what the next 30 years looks for local government on a range on a number of levels. So really the purpose was to bring it to your attention. Submissions are open until the end of February, and at that point the report will be finalised and sent to the Minister of Local Government by June, at which point the government will sort of consider their response going forward. Just for your information, the panel is currently doing a bit of a roadshow around the country. So if you're really interested, there are a couple of sessions in Christchurch and Dunedin in person, or there is a webinar that you can attend. And in terms of TDC, I guess the focus around our submission at this point is sort of focused around the questions that have been raised by the panel in the report, but we'll welcome your feedback on anything in particular that you think would be of value for us to focus on across the breadth of the report. So that's the guts of it.
Councillor Piddington. Oh, sorry, and then we'll go. You'll go this way. Sorry, apologies, and then we'll go. Yep. No, you're right, Councillor Piddington. Go. Yeah.
Mark, I've read through it. I mean, but it doesn't actually say much. I mean, it's all high-term goals, and I get that, but the details are pretty thin on how it's delivered. So is that the next step, or am I missing something here?
Well, certainly from my understanding of it, the panel's still working through a lot of that detail, and this is the opportunity to feed into that detail. You know, there are some more detailed recommendations in there, like reducing the age of voting, for example. And certainly there's some areas where they've highlighted, we want to hear back from the sector what your view is, so that we can formulate those recommendations through to the Minister. Yeah.
Yeah, and Councillor Piddington, I expect the sector's views to change somewhat from when a lot of this work started to now, just with that shift at election time. And Scotty, you might talk to this as well, but the mood in the room at Rural and Provincial a couple of weeks ago was not that they had a lot of confidence and or faith in this document, or were supportive of it at all. And it was very much felt like 3 years ago at a Rural and Provincial when we were discussing Three Waters, it was the same mood, that no one wanted or had any confidence in the direction. So, but the key thing is, I think, is that we need to submit on what we want to see in it. Yeah, and work through those questions. We'll go, Councillor Burt, thank you.
This is the future for local government, and it says he mata whariki, he mata whanui, which apparently means a well-carpeted area, and it's comprehensive. The carpeting over the top of it, that's exactly what they're doing. This is you know, with all due respect, everything in here flies in the face of what they're doing to us around Three Waters. And in Three Waters, we had a failed Scottish plan that we were going to turn into something new. And if you go back and have a look at where they've landed, in here we've got a failed Welsh plan for well-being. We're going to take on the Welsh plan on well-being. The whole thing flies in the face of what Three Waters is doing to us from this government. And to try and put this on any high level to say that this is what we're going to see is going to be for you, and we're going to strengthen local governance or governance or government is just ridiculous. So that's my 5 cents worth.
Thank you. Well, we don't have to get into full debate on this one because we are just receiving a noting. Yeah, Councillor Jackson.
Just want to ask a quick question. So, like, with this document, we're not having to support the whole document, are we? We can just support parts of it that we think are worthwhile and can make comment on things we don't think are worthwhile, yeah?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and we've got some time, end of Feb as far as submissions, so 260 pages. If you haven't read it, there's one to add to the pile for Christmas. Yeah, well, that's true. So but it would be really helpful, perhaps in the new year, if we just get an opportunity to give some good feedback to the officers.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously there'll be other commentary that comes through from LGNZ and Tautawara and other groups as well. So I mean, you'll have your connections to different groups, I imagine, that might have a view. So feel free to feed those through to us.
Cool. Thank you. Well, I'm happy to move that we receive a note. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Oliver, thank you. No further discussion. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mark, for all that. Just before we, no consideration of urgent business, no minor nature, we've done public forum. Before we move to exclusion of the public, just want to say thank you to Azora. Unfortunately, she's off to pursue new endeavours and be closer to family, and we totally respect that, but we've enjoyed you in the Timaru district. You've been fantastic for the business, and we're indebted to the work that you've done in the short space of time. So thank you. We wish you all the best, and we'll make sure we can create some job opportunities if you want to bring the wider family whānau back down this way into the future. So thank you. Now we need to move to exclusion of the public. We needed just a few minutes, so you can take a couple of minute break just to change over. So I'll move that we exclude the public. Can I have a seconder for that? Councillor Burt, thank you. Say aye. It's carried. So just take a couple of minutes.